Hey folks, Kurt Van Mañana no Mas, Lifter LMS today. I just got off the trail on this demo ride here, and I'm riding the NukeProof Mega. So if you go to their website, NukeProof.com, you'll see they have a couple of different models. Today I rode the Mega. They're having a demo day. And I wanted to get these opinions down kind of like first thing. So a couple of things right off the bat. It's a 29er, and I should tell you what I'm comparing to. I have a 2017 Giant Rain Advanced 1. It's a medium. This is a medium. So they set this up for my height and my weight. Let's not talk about the weight, but I'm heavy. So they set it up for 5'8" and heavy. And folks, the bike has a lot of things I like right out of the chute. So one, the dropper post, I put my own pedals on it. They set it to my size. They checked the sag. All of that was great. What I really like about getting on this bike, and it happens with a lot of new bikes, so don't make too much of this, but the bike is quiet. I really enjoy riding a bicycle and not hearing it go clickety clack, bang bang, shake a while you're going up and down things. The other thing I liked was the shifting. Although it felt stiff, the shifter itself felt stiff. Especially on downshifts. But that stiffness gave me a super sure, solid shift. So I really enjoyed the way that the bicycle shifted. Other thing, super quiet suspension. It's got a Fox 38 fork on the front. It's got the Fox X2 float on the back. The Fox X2 float is the same shock that I have on my Giant. So very similar feel, but again, quiet, very quiet. I really enjoyed that. Now, with my weight and with the riding I did, the jumps that I did today were small, maybe a lip of 12 to 16 inches, right? So a 12 to 16 inch like rise off the trail, and I carried maybe 2-3 feet. It feels like 5 or 6, but in reality, I only jumped 2 or 3 feet at a time. I will tell you, the suspension absorbed everything I put at it. Rocks, roots, all of that, it did fine. One thing I was told about the bike was that it would be really good for climbing. I slipped and told them that I enjoy the climbs more than the descents because I'm a little chicken-hearted when it comes to descending sometimes. And so they assured me the bike would be great for climbing. The bike was great for climbing, but I had to completely lock out the rear shock. If the shock was activated, I noticed a lot of extra energy was going into my climb, more so than I would say on my Giant. Okay, but remember, my Giant is different. I also have a 46 tooth rear sprocket on that bike and 27.5 inch tires. Okay, so I'm just going through the differences. So this one here is a 29er. It's got the stock gearing on it, and I did notice that when I locked out the rear suspension, then I started to climb much more like on my Giant. So I hope that that's making sense. I don't want to compare, apples and oranges here, right? I want to give you a good review of what I rode. I will tell you something I like on this bike more than my Giant, and that was when I was doing the descent and I was letting the speed come into it. I went up a hill here that's called the dreaded hill. So it's, and I turned around and came down that. So when I allowed the bike to pick up speed, one thing I liked about this NukeProof bike is it seemed a lot more sure-footed than my Giant. It wasn't skittering around. Both bikes are on Maxxis tires, okay? So there's a similarity there. It's a 29er versus a 27.5, but the NukeProof was extremely sure-footed, and it gave me a lot of confidence, especially in kind of like, those sweeping, kind of like gravel-coated fire roads that you come across, and you think to yourself, man, I sure hope I don't wash out here, because you're going 26, 30 miles an hour, something like that. And the bike was super sure-footed, just tracked really well around the corners. So I give it high marks for stability, especially downhill. I give it high marks for just the quietness and the running gear. That was super fantastic. I give it high marks for shifting assuredness, right? I felt like the bike was accepting my inputs with no in-between communication. Like everything was solid and crisp, and I really enjoyed that. Now the guys did go over the bike before I took it, so I can imagine if I had a professional tune-up done to my Giant every time I rode it, I would probably be just as impressed with my bike all the time. But I will tell you that I was really, really impressed with this demo ride. The only thing that I gave it a medium mark on, performance-wise, was I had to lock out that rear shock on the climb, because with the shock activated, I felt like it was absorbing too much of my energy to keep going up the climb. And it's a really, really steep climb here, so maybe I'm being too critical. But when it comes to climbing, I take that kind of serious, even though I'm on an enduro bike. So, because I can't afford to have a fleet of bicycles. I have to have one bike, and I have to ride with 3 or 4 different groups in different terrains. So I like the enduro bikes, but I have to be able to climb with my enduro bike. I'm in a position where I can only really afford the one bike. Now let's get into some styling things about the bike. I think the bike's pretty. I like the way the rear shock sits on the bike. I got no issues with the way that the bike looks. I did have an issue with the seating, the position of the seating. I think, and I'm gonna have to double check the specs, but I think the cranks might be longer on this bike than my bike. So maybe that's what I was feeling. I felt like on the downstroke I was getting enough extension behind my knee, so I felt like the seat was in the right position for that. But I noticed at the top of the stroke, I felt like I was working real hard, harder than usual. And so if there's an extra 5 or 10 millimeter of crank length, that could explain why it felt good at the bottom, but I was too short at the top of the stroke, which is telling me I probably need to elevate the seat maybe 5 millimeters. Okay, so that's one thing. That's something that's adjustable, so I wouldn't hold that against the bicycle at all. The other thing that I found that was an issue I'm 5'8", and I have a 30-inch inseam. So for me, the seat right here, it just felt like it was too far forward. I felt like my reach to the bars was short, and I'm used to having a little bit more of a reach there. Again, something that could be adjusted out, so it's not a mark against the bike, it's a mark against the way that I fit the bike for my test ride today. I'll tell you this, 3 years ago, I was not a rider that would have been upset by 5 millimeters of this and 10 millimeters of that. But now that I've gotten more serious about my bicycling and I've gotten used to certain things, the setup is really, really important. I'll tell you, it's been a while since I've ridden because my bike broke when I was in Phoenix and the shop was fixing my shock. So I've been off for a while. And to get on today and start riding and not have those settings just right, I could really feel the impact, on those muscle groups while I was doing that. So that's it in a nutshell, man. If you're looking at a new mountain bike this year and you haven't heard of NukeProof, I'm gonna say go ahead and check it out. I'm not gonna take it off the list. Like it's worth taking a look at. The bike is fairly light, feels super solid. Like I said, it felt super, super sure riding it. The shifting was awesome, the suspension was awesome. And if you can get the fit right, if you can get the seat in the right position and all that niggly stuff that's adjustable, I think you've got a really good value package here. So that's that. I'll talk to you guys later.